I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is the Readathon. And I'm here with Mel Barrett. Mel, do you want to remind everybody who you are?
Hi there, everybody. I am Mel Barrett, the host of the In Between podcast, which is an investigative true crime podcast. I just put out an episode today with an update on the Pamela Smart case, if you're interested.
That's very exciting. A case close to home for me. Pamela Smart, of course, was convicted of murder and didn't actually do it.
Accomplice, yeah.
Accomplice, yes. But the people who actually pulled the trigger are out. And she is in. Anyway, it's a very famous case, one of the first gavel-to-gavel televised trials in the United States. Very sensational case. Look it up and then listen to Mel's podcast.
Please do.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about Friday, the first day of the defense in the Karen Read case. Full disclosure, we are taping this right after court finishes, but I may not get it out Friday night, so that's why I'm referring to this to Friday and not today some of the time. So let's get going. And I'd like to start kind of backward, because I actually think the most interesting thing that happened in court today was at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Did you watch the voir dire at the end of today?
Did. I watched everything today. I sent you a text earlier the day. I said, not a lot of groundbreaking stuff happening today.
This is why I want to start with the voir dire and go backwards, because I think we can cover the day pretty quickly. So the prosecution filed a motion to keep out the Michael Proctor text chain after they saw the defense plan to call some of the other people in the text chain, a bunch of guys, Michael Proctor's buds.
The text bros.
As the internet says, Hank Brennan got big mad and wrote a motion basically saying, if you want the Proctor text in, you have to call Proctor, which is what they want. They want the defense to call Proctor so that they can just cross-examine him and rehabilitate him instead of having to ask him questions about his work. So today we had one of Proctor's text bros come up for a voir dire. What did you think about this guy?
I thought he was nice. I mean, I thought he was there to help in any way that he could. That's what it seemed like to me. I don't think he was harboring any sort of animosity toward the defense for being called. He had his lawyer there with him. I think he's prepared. I think he's ready. I also don't think, based on the questioning, we also got to hear from Yannetti today, which we haven't heard a lot from Yannetti during this trial. And I felt like he was on top of it today. He doesn't take any shit from Bev.
No, and he's the right lawyer to make this argument because it's all Massachusetts case law that they included. And he was like, their case law is wrong. And here's why. This was a murder case. It has nothing to do with this case because, and basically his whole point was that all of the cases that apply to this were basically decided in favor of the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth put up cases that had nothing to do with texts per se, and nothing to do. One of them had to do with a search warrant and hearsay statements. But they're basically saying this was hearsay,
which is rich.
But he's like, as you've said, but Judge Cannoni, I don't think he said that exactly, but as she has said, the jury should be able to assume that texts are true, not that the substance of texts are true, but that they speak to the state of mind of the text writer. And there's no more classic example of that than these texts.
Right. And also the fact that they're even arguing that they should be calling Proctor when they brought Buchanan in to read Higgins' text and to read some of Proctor's texts. I mean, he's such a hypocrite, Hank Brennan.
Yeah. So then we heard this woman, Deaver, was it Karen Deaver? Who is that?
Kelly. So Kelly Deaver is a Canton police officer who was there during this. She now is with the Boston Police. I'm very excited about this because she's never been introduced before. And it sounds to me like she's going to give some color and background on what was happening at the station at the time.
Really?
It could be that she was there the night Higgins was there. It could be just that she was like an outside sort of observer of how everybody was handling things. But I'm excited to hear from her. She's
the one related to the discovery or typical discovery that the prosecution asked for? All right.
So the prosecution asked for all written communication between Kelly and the defense. And if they couldn't give them any written, Hank wanted Jackson to basically summarize.
Write down his oral communications.
So Jackson basically got up and was like, we didn't have any written communications.
I would love to have Hank have to disclose all of his verbal communications in a summary with everybody. I think that I actually suspect that he was talking to Welcher today We'll get to that. Yeah, so that's exciting. And then who is, now this was a point of day, and just the reason I'm asking these questions is because I was listening at this point and not watching. I did watch some of today and listen to all of it. I did not miss a minute today, but some of it was in my ears and some of it was in my eyes. Who was it whose lawyer was present, and they said, and she talked to the lawyer and said, "We'll see you first thing Monday morning." That was a third person.
That was one of the text bro. That was the guy who the voir dire was for.
Wasn't there a different lawyer in the courtroom at that point? No,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that she, after he was done testifying, she spoke to the lawyer and said,
"Got it.
We need you to make him available probably first thing Monday morning."
Okay.
And then, of course, Kelly Devers had been sitting around the court all day waiting to be called, and she didn't get called.
She got called in, and it said, "Come back Monday morning."
Yep.
God, I really want to hear from this Kelly Devers. Okay, so let's talk about what happened earlier in the day. We had our first defense witness. This is DeSogra, who Hank Brennan cannot pronounce this dude's name to save his life.
I can't either, to be fair. So
it's DeSogra. Like soda, DeSogra.
You say that, I'm going to say it wrong again, just so you know.
His expertise, he's an engineer with a master's degree. His expertise, and it's interesting, somebody on the internet did a Google search of like the top reconstruction and accident engineering firms in the country, and he works for the other one besides ARCA that's listed as the top two. Needless to say, Aperture is not on that top 10 list. No. But anyway, so the point of his being called was the work he did for the defense was he didn't do original work. He basically took the work of Aperture, analyzed that work, used their reports, their data to make conclusions about the veracity of their work. And he came up with, I think, one kind of big thing. Basically, it was kind of funny, though, like throughout, he was so nice. Like, as we said,
so nice.
All
so
these
calm.
defense witnesses are going to be so nice. And he was no exception. He said when he didn't know something, whatever. But his big thing that he came up with was this 3-second difference between when you hit the car on and when the infotainment system comes on that wasn't accounted for in any of the calculations that Shannon Burgess did in his subsequent stuff. So there was one big thing. And then the rest of it was basically like, I've never seen this done. He's like, I wouldn't tell anyone how to do their job. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying this isn't how I would do it, and I've never seen it done this way. That kind of seemed to be the gist of what he was saying. That and inconsistently applied math. So what were your thoughts about this?
Well, I love this guy. I thought he was very honest. And I think that even when we get to the cross, Hank was throwing a lot of semantics at him. Hank was also really grumpy, like just so angry.
This is how he's going to be with every defense witness.
Everybody. And I think he's going to be worse with other people. He would, sort of go back and forth between being sort of angry at this guy and then just chastising him for being like, so you didn't do any work. You didn't do any work. Like our experts did work. You didn't do any work. But basically what he was doing was he was trying to make the jury think this guy didn't actually do anything. But that's what he was hired to do.
Right.
And I think that Jackson did really well on redirect to be like, we hired you to take all of the data from these 3 reports. So Burgess is first, Burgess is second, and Welcher's, other report, put them all together and dispel and tell us what it says, you know, and he did that. And he is good at what he does. He was very open about the fact that he's not a mobile phone expert or data expert.
Nor does he have to be for this work.
No, but Brennan was making it seem like he needed to be.
Yeah.
And he was very subtly funny and subtly snarky, and I really appreciated that.
Same.
Like at one point, he brought up one of Burgess's slides, which was just like print up and down all over the place, and he's like, I forget. I think I quoted it. Let me just look at the notes really quick. He basically said, the Aperture slide is a little busy, so he created something more streamlined. And I was like, okay, LOL, that's pretty good. One of the biggest things that I thought that he hit on, though, which was, I think, what his entire testimony was about, and is very important. We just spent the whole day on it, unfortunately. That is that DeSogra says the phone lock event, John's phone lock, always, in all of the data, occurs after the trigger event.
Correct. And if you apply the data the way that it was applied by Aperture, it only occurs 3 times out of 30.
Right.
So it's basically, and what's really funny was that Hank wouldn't let him say, so what percentage of 30 is 3? Everyone in the jury obviously knows it's 10%, but very, very strange. Yeah, so it's really interesting. I will contend again, I don't think any of this reflects reality. I think John O'Keefe went into the house much earlier than 12:32. I think all of those phone events could be things that happened by somebody else or later, but I think they arrived at like 12:22 or 12:23. Like that's something we know. What the hell were they doing in the car for 9 minutes or 8 minutes? Like that's just not a thing, which by the way is something that, hasn't really been gelled out yet by the defense. Maybe it will be. But yeah, he was easy to understand. As much as I thought that Welcher actually did a good job laying out a story on his first day of testimony, this guy was very much like, this is what I was hired to do. This is what I did. This is why I don't agree with it. And if you're going to apply math in one place, you have to apply it in all of the places. That's basically what he said, right?
Yeah, there was one slide that he brought up from Burgess that I thought was really interesting too. He's like, well, he shows all of his math right here, but then he just says, these are all the ways you could do it.
Right.
He never actually applies it, which I thought was really interesting. It even though I didn't fully understand all of the tech speak and everything that was happening, if I were sitting on the jury, one of the things that I would have gotten was, it feels to me like they're trying to hide.
Yeah.
Like the prosecution is trying to hide information and hide data.
Mm-hmm.
And hide how they're coming to things, and that's why I really just appreciated that he was very straightforward. He didn't let Hank Brennan rattle him at all, which I think was really important for the jury to see.
I don't think any of their witnesses, except maybe Lucky, are going to be rattled. And I'm only saying Lucky because Lucky is, bless his heart, a little more emotionally limited, I think, than these expert witnesses. Like Lucky is just a salt of the earth dude who's just he's not someone who testifies in court regularly, right? So
right, but I think with Lucky, Lucky's baseline is honesty, though.
Yeah,
and so I don't think he's going to get that rattled, because at the end of the day, he is going to maintain. He's going to continue.
That's what he did
say,
last time. Yeah,
this is what I saw. You can't talk me out of it. Even when they were like, well, they took you out to the parking lot at the bowling alley to identify a Ford Edge. And he's like, oh, no, I know what a Ford Edge is. And I know the difference between a Jeep and a Ford Edge.
Oh, my
and they were like,
gosh. When he asked him
my
that
cousin
question,
Vinny moment.
When he asked him what's the difference between a Jeep Cherokee and a Ford Edge, and he was like, well, a Ford Edge has
bigger lights and
more of a rounded
spoiler
back.
and a grill and a bit of
It was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think Lucky's I don't even think he'll get rattled. I think he knows that the right thing to do is to tell the truth, and that's what he's there to do, and that's all he needs on his side,
Yeah.
That and a couple of squirrels and some dogs and cats.
So you think on Monday we're going to see this woman, Kelly Deaver. We're going to see some of the bros, maybe? A bro or two?
Well, I'm not really sure where they're going now. I'm a little confused because they started with this data analyst.
Right.
We were sort of positing yesterday that it would be kind of cool if they started with ARCA, because it would be a continuation of the conversation. But then I was like, well, if they go in line with what the prosecution did, it's starting with the first responders and the police officers, and then Jen McCabe and Carrie and blah, 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 and then getting into the data. So now I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think they wanted to bring this guy in because he's like serving up. He's casting doubt on the prosecution experts right away. And now they can do other.
Kelly or the guy that they did the
guy
voir dire
DeSogra
with?
Today. Like today, his coming today was basically like, so you also think this is all bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, let's just leave it there, and then let's move on to other stuff. I mean, they are going to be also limited too by when they can get people here, obviously, and witnesses like Marie Russell, Dr. Marie Russell, and their dog bite guy, Garrett Wing. Like they have to, the travel has to work. So I'm guessing a lot of the people will be called like Mondays or Tuesdays so that they can, potentially be on the stand a couple of days. So I guess we'll find out. I mean, we were wrong about today, but, we'll find out.
Well, I do think it was an interesting calling DeSogra based on what, like what you were just saying. I think that it was interesting to call him because he basically took the wind out of the sails of the prosecution.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just like, womp, womp. And now we're going to move into their theory of the case.
Yeah.
I think what they did was smart. I'm interested to see more David Yannetti because I do think the jury will respond to him really well.
I agree.
And I think he has a kindness to him,
yes.
even with witnesses who are difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed today, did you notice today that Hank Brennan has picked up some of Alan Jackson's lingo?
Oh, I did not notice that. What do you
when
mean?
he would get an answer from the witness, he would say, okay, that's fair. He's been picking up some Jacksonisms. It might be even subconscious. Like he's just picked up a couple of these Jacksonisms to sort of like, I think he's trying to temper his presentation a little bit. Little Ruby. Cute little Ruby. Is he going to come in on Monday with a whole different haircut and a beard maybe? Is that the whole... Oh, can I just say something very superficial?
Yes, please.
Thank you. DeSogra's a cutie, yes or no?
He was so cute. So you know how everybody calls Wolf and Rentschler
the Crash Daddies?
Yes. They were calling him Tech Daddy.
The Tech Daddy, Data Daddy.
The Tech Daddy. He was super cute, and he was like very nice and very kind, and he's so smart, you know?
Yeah.
Not combative at all. I feel like the jury is really going to respond to that.
Yeah.
What we haven't talked about is how the day started, though.
Well, we are going to. I mean, it's very standard. We should say that the defense came with their motion to dismiss. Extremely standard in any big case, especially murder cases. Before they present their case, they point out all the deficiencies of the prosecution's case, and they say they haven't proven it. You need to dismiss this case. And I will say, I usually sit through these and I'm like, blah, 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 because... I just know it's standard. This time I was like, he's not wrong about any of this.
He's making a good point here. He's making all good points.
They have not proven that there was a collision. They have not proven that a collision killed John O'Keefe. They have not proven, regarding counts 1 and 3, they have not proven any kind of intent. So her mens rea, as they call it. So his case was like very clear, but I was like, she's not going to, and she didn't even like wait a second before she was like, nope.
No, but did you hear Hank's rebuttal?
Yeah, he was very low energy in his rebuttal.
I was like, I don't think he believes this anymore.
He just knew it wasn't going to fly, so he didn't put any time or effort into it. That's what I think.
It sounded to me like he was just like phoning it in and was like, I don't know, I don't have a case.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Do you know if the defense, and I just don't know the answer to this, maybe someone could let us know, can the defense use clips from the documentary also, since they've been entered into evidence?
Why wouldn't they be able to?
Because the one clip I really want them to use, and someone on Twitter said the same thing, and I was like, thank you, is when Karen says that John's father says he looked like he's been through 5 rounds when he saw him in the hospital. That's something I think the jury should hear, because if they're not going to, they didn't call his dad. His dad was on the witness list, by the way. They didn't call him, the Commonwealth witness list. And they didn't call him, so this would be a way to get in that he said that without.
My only thing with the videos is I don't think the defense wants to remind the jury of them. So I think they have other ways of actually getting that information in, even through the cops, because the cops are the first ones who said that he looked like he'd been in a fight.
Yes, but Hank can play more video in his final arguments. But I hear, did you hear that it's only going to be an hour again? I saw someone post that.
That's so ridiculous.
It's
what is she doing?
Should have as much time as they need to make their closing argument. The hour-long closing argument. The good news is, last time she gave them that notice at the day before the closing.
Yeah.
This time they can prepare a one. Do you remember last time how Alan Jackson was going through his huge ass binder trying to like they had marked the good pages with like those little arrow stickers, and he was just flip, and he just told this quick story. And then poor Lolly was still going through his notebook as if he had all the time in the world, and he just had to stop. She's
like, okay, Mr. Lally. Okay, Mr. Lally.
Are you near the end?
He's like, I need like 30 more seconds. And his 30 more seconds was a friggin' John Adams quote.
Oh.
Do you remember?
I do.
He needed a few more seconds so he could say that John Adams quote. I was like, oh, Lally.
Yeah.
Oh, Lally.
One final question about DeSogra. One of the things he said was that none of the previous tech stream events, none of the events had been caused by a collision. So I think that's very clear. What he's saying is a collision could be the start of a tech stream event, and none of these tech stream events were caused by a collision, right?
I think I misunderstood that.
How did you understand it?
I thought he said that none of the text, like you couldn't see a collision from the tech stream data.
Right, but there's no collision. So the collision stuff would come from the airbag thing data. He said that ostensibly you would know if a tech stream event were caused by a collision based on what the event was. So what he was saying was none of these events were caused. There were like 19 other events. And it's unclear, were those events during the same key cycle? I don't think so, because then they wouldn't have been 1 and 2 in those.
There were 19 events that happened between Waterfall and 34 Fairview.
Really?
And then there were 11 more after 34 Fairview.
Right. Okay. All right.
I think they said something somewhere along the lines of almost 30 in that time frame.
Yeah. I liked it when Jackson asked him, how many events have there been in the entirety of Karen Read's text stream? And Brendan was like, no. And Judge Bev was like, scope, please? Like, could you give us a time frame? And he's like, sure. How about just that day?
He was such a jerk. I mean, today was the day when Jackson was, he is a baby.
We're talking about Brennan. Baby.
I keep hearing reference that he looks like Boss Baby.
He kind of does look like
the cartoon.
Boss Baby.
Yeah.
I will say too that I think that while his style might come in handy in a defense context where you're beating up on cops, beating up on state witnesses, and so think about him as a defense attorney. He'd be beating up on Proctor. He'd be beating up on all of these witnesses who have this. But he's as a prosecutor. The prosecutor, to me, a good prosecutor comes off like, I know I've got truth on my side. I can be confident. I can be cool. I can just let the jury see what I see. And then defense attorneys, usually the fiery ones who were like, but isn't it true that you took 8 years to graduate college, sir? Like, that's very much
I think of Alessi as very much, he bangs the podium and he points and he raises his voice on the word that he wants the emphasis on, he's so
It's so funny when Alessi gets upset. It's almost like he can't believe the person's doing the thing they're doing that made him upset.
You can hear it in his voice. He goes, Your Honor.
Peter Brady's it all day long.
But today, Jackson was standing up from the first word Hank would get out to object because he could hear what was coming.
Hank did so much speechifying today.
It was so inappropriate what he did today. It was.
He's like, are you sure you're an expert, sir?
He said something along the lines of about DeSogra's affidavit. I was honest in your affidavit or something like that.
Yes.
It was so strange. I feel like the Commonwealth should be embarrassed by him.
I think they should be embarrassed by him too.
Yeah, he was an ass. So.
All right. Well, thank you for elucidating for me who Kelly Deaver is. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited. As soon as I heard who she was. Yeah.
As soon as I heard that Hank wants to see and hear all their communications, I know he must be frayed.
Freaking out. Freaking out. Hank's freaking out. He's like, Hank is making a game plan this weekend.
He's big mad and big afraid of these witnesses. There's this one very funny Twitter account. And granted, I know I will just say it. It's all very unprofessional.
I can't believe you're still on Twitter.
I've gotten a couple of emails about my lack of professionalism on this podcast. I'm fine with it. I have been transparent. This is not
professional. What's the profession?
Well, I'm not being a journalist here. I am so invested. I'm not covering this for any of my journalism jobs.
Right.
I now do have a bias because I watched Trial 1 and I've been very straightforward about that. And by the way, if video emerged tomorrow that Karen Read did actually hit John O'Keefe with her car, I would be full on like, I was wrong. I am Eden Crow. Like,
absolutely.
I was wrong.
Absolutely.
That being said, this case still should not have been prosecuted based on how it was conducted. That being said, because I watched the first trial, I am pretty fucking sure she did not hit John O'Keefe with her car. But on Twitter, there is a funny account that puts up these like letters home or letters to somebody from Hank Brennan in this like loopy handwriting. It's like, I'm so happy today. The jury seemed to appreciate my new tie. I got to use my big boy voice today.
What do you think he's going to do after this?
I think he'll be fine. He's going to have so much more money. He'll be fine. He'll get to write his own Why Karen Read is Guilty book. Like, he'll be fucking fine.
Ugh.
Confessions of a Mob Lawyer. I don't know. Do you know that he went to Whitey Bulger's funeral? I just heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mel, what are you going to do over the weekend? Are you going to relax, have a good time, or are you going to be just jonesing for Monday to come?
I won't be jonesing, but I do have to work on I didn't plan to put a second episode out this week, so I usually do my Karen Read recap on Tuesdays, and I did not plan to put out, this is the second week that I put a second episode out, and the news hit yesterday about Kelly Ayotte. Did you hear what happened?
Yes.
Yeah, so, she's not even allowing a vote, basically, for a hearing for Pam this time.
Yeah, Pam Smart, yeah.
Yeah, so Pam called last night, and I had a pretty long interview with her. Did the interview and put the episode out this morning.
By the way, this is 0% surprising because in New Hampshire, Pam Smart is as political an issue as school funding.
Yeah.
And Kelly Ayotte, our new governor, is a former prosecutor, a former murder prosecutor.
State's attorney.
She was an attorney general. She was the state's attorney general. And before that, she was a prosecutor in the attorney general's office.
But you know what she did? Did you read her statement?
No.
She confused pardon and commutation.
Oh, goodness gracious.
She's like, I'm not giving Pam Smart a pardon because, violent criminals, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, she's not asking for a pardon.
Yeah.
A pardon is forgiveness for a crime. She's not asking.
She's become much more conservative.
Oh, yeah.
She's always been very conservative.
Yep.
But she has become much more conservative. And New Hampshire it is a singular state when it comes to the criminal legal system.
Oh, yes. That's why this is so difficult.
New Hampshire has never had a murder conviction overturned in the history of the state.
And they're not starting with Pam.
If it starts with anybody, it will start with Jason Carroll, who was covered in Bear Brook season 2, and of course, also in Undisclosed. Jason Carroll has new DNA that was discovered in his case from evidence that was found after Bear Brook came out, because someone in the court was listening to Bear Brook and was like, I think I saw a box of something downstairs. And there's been new DNA. The DNA has been tested. There's something on it, but what that means is not clear yet. So if there is ever a murder conviction overturned in New Hampshire, it will be Jason Carroll's will be the first. Yeah. But it's very political here. It's very much like, it's political everywhere, but here it's singularly political because a lot of the prosecutors they're not conservative, good old boys, let's fry everyone types. It's almost worse because they're so sure they can never be wrong because they're working for the good.
That is what I have experienced in talking to Maggiato and several other people in New Hampshire.
They just can't conceive of a world in which they'd ever be wrong. Even the defense attorneys feel that way. Like, everybody is just so on board with their own work in a way that I've never seen elsewhere. Elsewhere, it's just like, oh, that's racism. Oh, that's this. Oh, that. Here in New Hampshire, it's much, there's racism too. Don't get me wrong. But it's very much like, no, there's no way we could be wrong because we don't even prosecute a case until we're 150% sure it's the right guy.
Well, I can tell you that based on the police reports and the investigation I did on this case, they got some of it wrong. Yeah. And I will also say that not only is it a political thing, well, it's completely a political thing, but this also is one of the biggest black stains on the state of New Hampshire.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why they shipped her out in the middle of the night. But I will say this. At this point in time, the state of New York, where she has lived and has been basically a citizen for the past 32 years, they want to let her out. But they don't have the jurisdiction. New Hampshire still has. And I always bring up this point. I'm not interested in discussing necessarily guilt or innocence. The sentencing is really harsh as far as I'm concerned. But on top of that, people in New Hampshire, you are paying to incarcerate her.
Yeah. Same with Sheila LaBarre, by the way.
You are paying money to keep Pam Smart in prison in New York. And if they would let her out, there's not a moment in time where she would even step foot in that state again.
Yeah.
She's terrified of that state, and she knows that people hate her, and she wants nothing to do with it. She just wants to get out and go to work, basically. So
yeah. So there's a female serial killer in New Hampshire that Kevin wrote his first book about, Sheila LaBarre. She was also shipped out in the middle of the night to a different state. There's something, especially women inmates, the state just has horrible facilities, period, but their facilities for women are especially heinous.
Right.
They just have no resources. It's a very under-resourced, horrible system. I'm really interested to see where your case goes, and I will be following it. But on Monday, we get more defense. So
yes, we do. And I'll be putting my new Karen Read recap of this week out for Tuesday. So that was the question you asked me. What am I doing this weekend? Working on Karen Read's trial.
All right. Well, how can people listen to your recap?
They can listen to it on the In Between podcast, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. Listen to the In Between. Listen to our other show, Crime Writers On, and These Are Their Stories, podcast about law and order and criminal intent and SVU. And listen to You Can't Make This Up, the Netflix podcast where I interview directors of documentaries on Netflix. I always forget to plug my shit here.
We're so professional.
There's a bunch of people here who don't listen to anything else we do. So let's just make sure
stuff.
We do. We're so busy.
You do way more than I do. I don't know how you all do it.
We're not nearly as busy as David Yannetti, Alan Jackson, Bob Alessi, and Elizabeth Little are, though, aren't we?
That's true. Nope.
All right, Mel, thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you next week.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Partners in Crime Media.